Hey, good morning everyone, back again. Friday morning. Can't believe how these weeks just zing by. Since I retired, I seem to have, I don't know, there's no time left. Everything just wings right past. So we're back on the Fargo here, the last portion of rust repair. What I'm doing on the back is the two really bad areas on these for rust is the lower, below the tail lights in the back corner. And this is what's left of the passenger side. As you can see, it's nothing but Swiss cheese. Terrible mess. Going to be a real complicated piece to make because it tapers this way and this way. It's got a 90 and a 90, so we'll have to see how we're going to make it. But when Dodge or Fargo built this, they set it up for the ultimate failure. It's there's so many layers and there's no protection between the layers. So what they had, this piece comes across. There's a stiffener that holds the hinge in the backside. No protection on it. 2 spot welds. So all it did was create a pocket for dirt and moisture to get in. Then the piece wraps around and it comes down here. And then at the back, there's this heavy piece comes across. The piece that goes on the inside is doubled on top of that. And then the box corner is put on top of that. So we've got 3 layers. And there's moisture has got in between them, and they're all blistered and busted. So I have to drill the spot welds out, replace whatever's rotten here, and then work my way out slowly. So what I'm going to do on these, now that I've got this cut, I can take a pattern with the exact shape. I can make a pattern for the bottom to get the whole shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple pieces of 2x6. I'm going to cut them to exact shape, and I'm going to grind and sand the curves into them and use them as a buck to form my my 2 corners. Unfortunately, I have to make 2, a left and a right. So this one's not anywhere near as bad, so I'm going to make some shape gauges off of this one to make sure that they end up both the same. Once I have that done, I'm going to change the hinge configuration. This is what was in there. I'm going to eliminate the lower mount, and I'm going to put an upper mount and the center mount, which will be just a through bolt. And this is going to have a valance across apron with a recess for the tail light. We're not going to run a bumper on the back of it. So the other thing I did is I got rid of that ugly powder baby blue. I sanded and primed the tailgate. Got her in red primer so it matches a whole lot better and doesn't look anywhere near as ugly as it did before. So I got to assemble that, put the latches and everything back in. And as I get going on this and get to work on it, I'll show you the patterns and the buck I make for each one, and we'll get through her together here. So, okay guys, we're back again. Still working on digging out the rust in this corner. So there's lots of layers here. There's this piece here was all rusted out. It came across. It was spot welded here. It had a bead roll, like an offset in it. This is my replacement piece. I think you can see the offset I put in with the bead roller right here. So this is the replacement. So it comes in, it overlaps. I've got my holes drilled in it already for the spot welds. So it's going to get spot welded here. This piece here gets welded up solid. And then the cab or the box corner comes in, and then it gets welded on top of this one. So right here there's 3 layers, and they only put a few spot welds in them and no primer in between, so naturally the moisture is going to build up in there, and that all got destroyed. So I've got this piece ready. I'm just waiting for the primer to dry up a little bit more, and then I'm going to weld it in here. Okay, we're back. We have the patch welded in, welded it down the side across the top, and then I've got 2 rows of spot welds here and 2 rows here. It's all primed underneath, as you saw in the last little bit there. So now what I'm doing is contemplating how I'm going to go about the next stage of this repair. And this is the stiffener plate that holds the hinge for the tailgate. It's out of really heavy, I think it's 14 gauge. So I have to replace it because it's completely rusted out at the bottom here. The problem is this is going to be, if I don't get this in the right spot, I'm not going to have the right height for my tailgate. The other thing is this corner of the box comes around at a 90 degree all the way down. So my thoughts here is I'm going to build this piece that comes straight down the side, put a new stiffener in the back side. It'll be open on the back. I'm going to build this piece. I'm going to weld it on up here, have it just stick straight down. Then I'm going to take my pattern and I'm going to build the inside edge of the corner with the flange. It'll have a 2-inch flange that is bent 90 degrees this way. It's trimmed down up here a little higher, and it's got a forward kind of a relief bend on it. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to build this piece and I'm going to weld it all in. And then because the box corner is such a complicated piece with so many radiuses this way, I can build this and then I'll weld it straight down this corner and I can finish the weld off. The other thing is I'm not quite sure how I'm going to fasten this corner, because from the factory it's spot welded on here, and I believe that's done before the box side is put on. There's no real access from in here. A little bit, I'm going to have to really take a close look at that and see if I'm going to be able to drill holes and spot weld it from the inside. So I'm going to stew over this for the next 24 hours or so and see what I can do. See what the best plan is going to be to come up with here for it. And then I'll bring you back, guys. Okay, guys, so we're back again. Some more progress. I've got, I'll just have to probably pull it apart here once I show you what I've done and show you what's inside. So this is the first piece of the bed corner that I'm making. It is the flat anchor piece that the tailgate goes up against. This is the old one. Not much left of it. Wasn't much for a pattern. So anyhow, what I've done is it's broke at 90 degrees down here. This lip that goes inside the box is broke forward at 90 degrees. And then what I've done is on this edge here, I've broke that over at 90 degrees so that it's right on the inside of the outside of the bed corner. What that's going to allow me to do is run a bead down the corner here, which gives me a built-in backing for grinding so that I have lots of material to round this edge over all the way down. So when I build this piece, I'll build it to follow the contour as well as the flat and then the curve that comes in. Now behind this, I had the structure where the tailgate hinge bolted on, and I built a new one of those. Let me just pop these. So I have that piece out of 14 gauge. I spot welded it in 2 spots here and welded down this edge. This is the structure that's going to allow me to bolt my tailgate hinge on, and it will get spot welded to the inside of this piece here. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to fine tune the edge on this, make sure it's perfectly flat, grind it smooth. I'm going to drill all my my spot weld holes, and I'm going to get this piece spot welded in there. So I'll bring you back and show you how that's going. Okay guys, we're back. I've got the new piece is all spot welded in, spot welded to the stiffener behind for the hinge. Double row of spot welds here and a single row up here. I've got all the spots ground down and flattened out, and then I hit it with 80 grit on the random orbit sander. So one other thing I forgot to show you before, this had a really bad crease dent in it right here in the corner. It was probably pushed in close to 1/2 inch. It's in a really tight spot. If it wasn't for taking this panel off, the only way to fix that would have been to drill holes in it and slide hammer it, and I hate doing that. So there's not a lot of room in here to get a hammer to hit it. I have these tools. They come in a kit of 3, or you can buy them individually. They're hard Delrin plastic. There's one that's chisel point. There's one that's rounded. And then the one I used for this is kind of a flat on the end here. And they go in your air chisel. They're made by Steck Manufacturing. And they're just called a chisel panel shaper. You can buy them in the kit. I got mine off of Amazon. They're probably cheaper from some of the US sites. But what that allowed me to do was work from inside here with the air chisel, and it took that dent out of there just beautifully for me. So where I'm at next, I'm going to test fit the tailgate and figure out where my hinge goes on this side, make some adjustments there, and then I can get my hinge mount figured out, and then I can continue by making this back corner of the box panel here. So you'll be back. Okay guys, we're back. I got the tailgate fit. I did a modification on the hinge on this side. On these old trucks, the hinges were completely round, and to take the tailgate off, you had to take the 2 bolts off on each side to be able to pull it out. I wanted to change it more like today's trucks, where you can pull the tailgate down to 45 and then lift it off. So I modified the cup on this side, and I'll show you once I take it apart, so that I could do that. Works really good. Pretty happy with it. I did screw up pretty bad actually. For some stupid reason, before I cut this corner all apart here, I didn't put a brace across the top of between the sides on the box, and naturally this leaned in about 1/4 inch and wouldn't allow me to open the tailgate. So I had to use a bottle jack from the bottom of the driver's side to the top on the passenger side and push it back out to get it where it wanted to be. But now the tailgate fits really well. Latch is really nice. And you must say it looks a whole lot better in red primer than it did in baby blue. So, okay guys, I'll take this off of here and I can show you the modification I made on the hinge. And then I've got to finish the hinge on the driver's side or passenger side. I'm going to put a tab up with a second bolt to stop it from turning, and then we can start on that corner panel, which is not going to be fun. So I'll bring you back again. Okay guys, we're back here. Got the tailgate back off. Here's the modification I did on the hinge point. I cut the sides off, took about 1/3 of the circumference off on it. 1 bolt hole in the center. I'm going to weld a small tab that comes up like this with 1 bolt hole just to tie the whole hinge in together. So what you'll have is one bolt that's threaded from this side in, and then a nut on the bottom here to pull this hinge off. On the tailgate itself, I cut a corresponding slot in the bottom. Look at that, the light's right in our way. It's just a little bit forward of directly in the bottom of the tailgate. And everything works good. The angle on this is about 60 degrees pointing down. That stops it from pulling off when the tailgate's open and keeps it solid when the tailgate's closed. So anyhow guys, I'll bring you back again. Okay guys, so we're back again. Just going to show you, I'm about 3 hours into making this box corner. 18 gauge steel. I started out with a paper pattern that I traced. I folded it around, and where you can see these little folds, that's where there's too much metal, and I had to shrink it to make it roll around the edges. So the way you do that with steel is a couple different methods when you don't have a power hammer that has a shrinking die on it. So I've shown a video of this before. This is called a tucking fork. I took 2 old punches and welded them to a piece of bar stock. It doesn't work the best. They keep spreading apart on me here. But what you do is, between using the tucking fork hooked on a cord there, and I have a piece of 3x12 or 3x15 spruce block that has a dish cut out in the center. I use that to start my tucks to shrink the steel. So the way this works, clamp your tucking fork in the vise. You can use this by hand on a panel that's attached to the vehicle, or you can do it in the vise. And then where you want to shrink, I have to put more shrink in this corner of the panel here. So what I've done is I put the steel in between the forks and I pry it, and it puts these puckers in. Once you have the puckers in, you take it to the block and you pound these flat, and what it does is when it straightens out the puckers, it pushes the steel into itself and shrinks it. It's a really noisy process, which is why I haven't kept you here for all the pounding. Like I say, I got about 3 hours into the pounding so far. So I'll just pound these out, and then I can show you what's there. So here I have those puckers flattened out. What it did was it brought this corner in a little tighter. What I'm trying to do is get a 90 degree with just this radius in the corner here. I'll take you over and show you. I've got the panel pretty close to the shape I want. I made it oversized by a considerable amount to aid in fitting it here, but so right now I'm a little tall. What I can trim to fit. This corner has to come in now, but I'm following the brace on the inside here really well. So now what I'm going to do is, this is going to require more shrinking yet to pull this corner in tighter, and then I can start trimming this thing down to fit. The toughest part of this is going to be bending this flange that goes in and welds to the actual box side here. So I'm going to keep beating away on this, and I'll bring you back once I get it a little closer. Okay guys, I got the panel pretty much roughed out. It's really smooth. What I did was I used a planishing hammer, just one of them cheap Harbor Freight Princess Auto. They used to be about 159 bucks. I think they've gone up by 100 or so. They're well worth it for smoothing out all of the wrinkles and everything from beating on it with the nylon mallets and using the shrinking fork, or tucking fork as they call it. So now what I've got is a really nice fit. What I have to do is figure out where my Seam is going to be here, bend that flange. That's going to be a real critical part of this. I could screw the entire thing up if I don't get that right. So then I'll be starting again. And I really don't feel like doing that. So we're going to be really careful here. I'm going to have to, where this bends over, I'm going to have to take relief cuts out. Otherwise it's going to pucker up and I'm going to lose all of this, all the shape in the bottom. So I might have to add a little bit here, just so that I have a little bit to fold under and see what happens. Next thing I'm going to do is make my top cut. That's going to be a critical one here, and that'll be just a butt weld up into this panel up top. So I'll carry on. Okay guys, to figure out where my fold has to be on this panel, what I've done is I ran a piece of masking tape, 1-inch masking tape, all the way along, right on the edge of the fold here. Then I held my panel in place, nice and snug where it has to be, and I ran another piece, making sure this edge stayed the same all the way down. Then I ran a mark on the panel on the edge of the tape, and that gives me the perfect line for where I have to bend this flange over. Now the issue here is when I try and bend this over, this all has to be shrunk. Otherwise it's going to create a real problem in the panel. So I'm going to trim this down probably to about 3/8 of an inch all the way around, which is more manageable. And then when I get to where the bends are here, I'm going to take it down to probably about 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch, just so that there's not so much that's going to distort this panel. So wish me luck, because this is where I could screw the whole thing up trying to bend this flange. Okay, I have the panel trimmed. I have my fold line marked on the inside, and I put these little reliefs in with the grinder. It puts a lot less material that's going to put a lot less stress when I fold that over. So I'm going to attempt. Hey guys, so we're back again. I got the corner all manufactured here. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it was the best I could do with the tools I have. I did run into an issue. The flange that I bent on here, I had good intentions that I could spot weld it, but there is no access from the front side here. So what I ended up doing was welding it in on this seam. This is going to get filled when body work is done anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. It turned out nice and solid. Everything's copacetic. Now all I have to do is make one for the other side the same way. So hopefully that'll work out, and things will be okay. So anyhow guys, thanks for tuning in and putting up with all this crazy crap, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for subscribing and sharing with your friends. Take care.